Alright, so back with another video. This one is about nature versus artificial, or the natural versus the artificial. This is a very interesting topic to me, and I think it all kind of roots back to Aristotle and just like the definition of nature. But it's also an interesting time with like this whole like artificial intelligence thing and kind of where we're at. So I guess to start the foundation, I'd say what nature is, what does natural mean, and then kind of go from there. So the Greek word for nature is physis, I think, or like physike or something, and that's where the word physics comes from. And it literally means like nature or growth, or Aristotle would use it as like the essence of things, or its nature. The inherent principle of motion or change, he described it as. So I guess when you think of like the natural sciences, it's all just like getting knowledge of natural phenomena, how things exist as they are. I mean, the material world and the principle of things and causes of things that we can observe and like investigate, opposed to the artificial, which would come from the Greek word like techne or technique, which was like an art or a skill or a craft or something that was engineered or designed. It's something that you get the skill to design, create, only by humans, I guess you could say. So like artificial as opposed to nature is something engineered or created or designed by humans for a specific purpose, and the maker or creator of something that is engineers it for a specific end, a specific purpose. So this table, was made to put things on, or to eat, or a chair, or I think about transportation, the engine that was engineered by a creator, designed for a specific purpose to create energy to make a cargo, or make a plane fly, or a ship move. I guess nature, it acts in the same way every time, and it kind of has a universal aspect to it that it never changes. I mean, there's change involved in it. It's got emotion, it's got a circulatory, cycle that it goes through, but at its root, its nature is the same. I mean, I also think about animals and their instincts, how they have a certain nature to them, how you're kind of given a predisposition at birth, or a biological like endowment through your DNA, that this is the actions you're going to take because this is related to your DNA. So you think about the animals, or how they all act in a certain way, how bees will make a beehive, or whales will swim a certain amount of miles, or just any type of creature has a certain instinct and a certain nature to it. And they're kind of bound to this nature. Like, there's kind of like a genetic limit of like everything they can do and everything that's in their nature to do. I mean, you think about a dog or like a horse, it's in its nature to run, and it always will be. So I guess you could relate that to humans, how we have a certain nature. We have a human nature that we're always going to revert back to the same nature in a way. Like, we can only deviate so far from what our given nature is. We have natural desires and appetites, and you need sleep and food, and we have a desire to, I guess, seek pleasure, or gather in communities, or certain rituals, I guess, I don't know, but everyone is bound to a certain nature that they're kind of given since birth, and it kind of gets tricky between the whole like predetermined versus free will thing, because you're predetermined in a way. Like, I was watching a Noam Chomsky like interview with think it was like Brian McGee, and he was saying how every single person is born with a certain biological endowment. Like, there's certain barriers that you can't change about yourself that will always be you. But then it's also like you have a certain potential where you have free will to choose which direction you're going to go. Like, you might be born a certain height, which you can't change, or born with a certain, genetic makeup of like your hair color, or it may even be related a little bit to like your personality of like how your brain functions or how you learn a certain way or how you do certain things. But at the end of the day, it's still like you kind of create your own path, and you have a will to yourself that you can choose different routes, and you're not predetermined in that aspect. Like, and also he was pointing out that like the only reason we have creativity is because we're all given a certain starting point, that this is our, he called it biological endowment, but like our DNA, or like what is our nature, like things we have a proclivity to do or something like that. Mortimer Adler kind of defines like natural versus conventional, which is like another way of saying artificial, but he's like, I guess a natural society, or like we view as a society, would be like an ant colony or a beehive, that they naturally by instinct do these things. But then there's the conventional of like, he gave an example like the American Medical Association, where it's somewhat naturalism, like we group together, but it's like conventional that they created this group that will come together. So there's a difference between natural and artificial. I mean, sometimes they oppose each other, sometimes they don't. So there's a distinction between nature, artificial, and unnatural. And I was trying to like precisely define the difference between artificial and unnatural, and they're kind of mixed together sometimes, but for the most part, artificial is made by man. Unnatural is anything that deviates from nature or perverts the natural course of things. Like, nature has a course of doing something, and it's still hard to define unnatural as well, because it's like, it might be unnatural for like a double-headed snake or something, or like some type of mutation, but at the same time nature caused that because there was a duplication in whatever gene that caused this mutation, or some type of deletion of some whatever. So, but I guess natural, you would think, is the common universal way things usually go. I mean, almost every time, like, there's anomalies, but there's a certain natural way things go. And what else? So as far as like the whole natural law thing, that's pretty interesting as well, because it's like, I do believe there's a natural law, and all your beliefs will kind of center around like what you believe is man's nature and what is the core of like nature itself, capital N. So, do you believe there's a creator? Do you believe that this is no creator, undetermined, no maker? Will determine what you believe about human nature. And what you believe about human nature will determine every other belief you have about what's the right thing to do. Is there a moral law? What is man's worth? Do we have a fallen nature? Like, I think there should be like a reasonable agreement that we do have a fallen nature. I mean, you might not believe in like Adam and Eve and that like there's original sin, but we can all agree that like nature is corrupted and that it's not perfect. I mean, like if you look at creation, there's cancer and there's like things that are just corrupted, and even our human nature is corrupted. Like, we just fall into these bad habits and stuff that you can never perfect. Like, there's no perfect human, and even just looking at nature itself and like some stuff that happens is just like some weird perverted stuff that's like, is not the ultimate standard of how it should be. I mean, I guess the whole idea of like paradise or Eden is that everything is restored to its true nature, where there was no corrupted nature. I mean, in man and all of creation. But I think we can all agree, like, whatever your beliefs are, that there's a corrupted nature to this world and man. Like, that you believe it's since birth, I mean, that can differ your beliefs, but we all agree that, like, you don't have to teach a child to lie and all that stuff about, like, you naturally are corrupted yourself. Anyways, the natural law, it's pretty deep. I mean, there's a lot of ways to define it. There's a lot of philosophy behind it about like what the natural law is and debates on either side, but the best definition I can find was it's like a moral order that comes from human nature and directs us towards a certain good. And it's universal, and it's according to reason. It's in harmony with nature. So like the Stoics, I guess they believed in like live according to nature. And I mean, that's kind of dicey. Like, some parts I can agree with, like you want to be in harmony with nature, and then some parts is like, maybe don't. I mean, I guess it goes back to like Rousseau about, I guess he believed that the more you return to nature, the more pure you kind of become, the further we get away from the natural to the civilized, like the big city, or how the Industrial Revolution was happening, and then like they're getting more devising new ways of evil and vices, and you could see like these big cities, how they were getting like corrupted, and just the more you went to the rural or the countryside, you get more of like a pure aspect, or just kind of more in harmony with nature. And you can kind of see that today. I mean, you go to like New York versus like, or like LA, these big cities that are just so corrupt and just like unnatural. And then you go to more like a small town, and yeah, there's still bad things that happen, but like for the most part, they're generally like more pure and more like happy in life, and just kind of like simple, quiet living, I guess. When I think about this artificial intelligence that's always kind of existed, I mean, there was AI like years and years ago, but it's kind of become like rapidly advanced. And you think about natural intelligence and artificial intelligence, and how, I mean, they've created a machine that it appears as is reasoning, but I mean, really it's just got a bunch of data, and it's creating like good answers that like kind of hit majority of the time. Because I mean, in the beginning stages, people were putting like thumbs up, thumb down, and like voting on like what they wanted to hear. So it's just gotten smarter with that, of like what we want to hear. The question I wrote down was like, can humans surpass nature? I mean, it's kind of like yes and no. I mean, like, we're definitely the most dominant, like, if you can consider us an animal, we're distinct from all the animals, and we have art and culture and civilization, science and all this stuff. That's another thing about science, how it's just knowledge of nature. And I mean, they used to be called like a philosopher of nature or something instead of like a scientist, but it's really just wisdom or knowledge about nature and how it works, and its causes and principles and laws that govern them. That's another thing about nature, is it has laws that govern it, and it acts the same every time. Like, you think about the orbits, I mean, yeah, they have, I guess they discovered that they're not at the most, like, they're not perfect orbits, they're like ellipses or whatever, and for the most part, like, they orbit in the same cycle that we can determine like which season it is. And everything has a certain order to it, where it's a closed system that just repeats and loops. And there's certain parts about us that will never change. And then there's certain parts that are progressing and changing. So, I mean, technology is obviously progressing, but human nature itself will always be the same. I mean, our desires and appetites, and I guess you'd call it like the 7 sins or whatever, that we always like come back for pleasure, or that kind of draw us in. One thing I was thinking about for like natural versus artificial is like the whole blackfish killer whale thing, about how is that artificial or unnatural? And I guess it's both, obviously, but when the whole like controversy, that documentary came out on Blackfish, I think it was like because I don't think we really care about the killer whales. Like, no one really cares about animals, but just the fact that it was so unnatural and just like not according to their nature, and then nature like gives a purpose to it, has an end to it, and there's like a telos, so an acorn will has the potentiality and purpose and end of becoming a tree, to grow into a tree, or a seed that will grow into whatever type of being or creature, tree that it's going to become. The seed represents its end, like the cause, capital C cause, gives rise to like an end. And we know that killer whales like don't belong like doing backflips and like waving to people for our pleasure, so it was like so messed up. And I think everyone just kind of reacted to like, we're opposing nature in a way that's just like not right. I mean, nature has a course, and like they're designed for a specific thing, you know. I mean, killer whales are designed to like swim thousands of miles and be predators and like eat seals and be out in the ocean that's massive and like extremely cold waters, and to put them in like a small pool and like do tricks with them and train them like a dog is like kind of insane that they could even do that to begin with. Like that we could train a killer whale to like do a backflip or something. But it was also just screwed up that like that wasn't the right use of like our power over nature. And I guess we also like felt bad, or like people feel bad in a way, because you'd see like its tail go over the side and you just see like it's in bondage and it's not in its natural course of like what the animal is meant to be doing. And I think zoos are kind of like gone so downhill, they're screwed up. Like you just see like a depressed monkey and you're like, this isn't even enjoyable. Like, I don't know how that's still a business, but I guess it's still interesting for like kids to see the different types of animals. But you know they're miserable in there in captivity. Anyways, I think it's right to live according to nature in a certain aspect, and artificial things, they can be good, but they can also be evil. I mean, you think about every piece of technology that's been invented, it can be used for good or evil, you know. The car, or the phone, or the computer, or aircrafts, or like boats, or like, it has good and bad uses. I mean, I guess sometimes we see things that are artificial that are just so perverted, and like this is so unnatural. And like when I think about like AI generating certain like videos or images, I'm like, this is just so like, it's deception, you know. It's a perversion of like, it makes you want to like go out in the woods and live, because it's so distorted and like dystopian. I guess technology has gotten to the point where like it's pretty dystopian, I guess, and it's gone past the point of like, this is useful for us, to like now we just rely on it to do everything, and we're just losing our sense of who we even are. one other thing about nature is not only does it never change, but it being universal is like I think example in like Aristotle was he was saying like the same fire in Persia is the same fire in Greece, and how there's no differences in the fact that like it's the same nature, it's the same thing it's producing that's the same everywhere in the world and always will be from the end, like the beginning of time to the end of time. I think that's all I got. It's a pretty interesting subject, natural versus artificial. The nature versus nurture thing is something completely different, but I guess one last thing is everyone is bound to a specific nature, and you can't really change it as much as you think you can. I mean, it doesn't mean you're stuck though. Like, everyone has potential to be anything they want to be. It's like kind of cliche, but you have a certain nature to you, but it doesn't mean like you're predetermined for like failure or success. Like, you can choose different routes, make different choices, and grow, and you're not stuck forever. And I guess we can learn a lot from nature too. Like, I was reading this Leonardo da Vinci book, and the way he like discovered a lot of things about medicine and architecture and all those things, sciences, was he would just observe like how nature functions and connect it to like whatever field he was studying. So one example was like he'd look at the rivers and compared it to like the blood flow in the body, about you have these vessels or arteries that are like rivers, and they branch off and they all connect each other to like carry nutrients and stuff, and it's pretty incredible. And then there's something else I'm forgetting. I think he was looking at like the curls of your hair, and he's comparing it to like how water flows or something, and how it creates it. Like, it was something had something to do with like physics, because he was looking at like pressure and water and like Boyle's law or something about how fluid dynamics work or something insane. But he was comparing it to vortexes of like how the water would travel a certain way, and these like riptides and water currents. And he like looked at the curls of someone's hair and he would draw out, and then he compare it to the water currents, and then I don't know, he discovered a lot of stuff, innovated a lot of things. But what I realized about him was he's always looking to nature to like teach him, because we're all kind of correlated to the same things. I mean, you look at like the earth as one organism, as one body, and then you look at your body and you can see how they kind of interact the same, and like, I don't know, they're very like analogous to each other. Oh, I know another thing I was thinking of, it was like the tree branches, and he was looking at like your lungs, about how the tree branches would like, they collect carbon dioxide, make oxygen, and then if you look at like your alveoli or your these pulmonary like branches in your lungs, they do the same exact thing, and they look exactly like tree roots, and they do the opposite of what the trees do, how you absorb in the oxygen and then inhale the oxygen, exhale carbon dioxide, and it just works the opposite way. But they look the same like anatomically and stuff, and you would draw it out, you dissect all these bodies. It's pretty incredible. But yeah, I think that's all I got. And then, well, also how nature is kind of associated with the real, and artificial is like unreal. Like, something that's artificially made is, it's just something that's unreal to the point where like, I mean, think about the obvious right now, which is artificial generated images. They're images that appear real, but they're like unreal at the same time, versus someone taking a photograph of a real person. Or you think about our processed food, that's, I mean, it's got aspects of certain things that are fruits or like electrolytes or vitamins or whatever. But the artificial stuff that's added is just corrupts you. So the artificial can also be deceptive and appear one way, but it's not natural. I guess if there's any like practical stuff out of anything I just said, it would be focus on the natural things, what you eat, what you consume, what you fill your mind and body with, and live according to nature and that what is good, that which is good, which means like don't fill your mind and time with things that are just corrupting you, and spend more time in the natural things, relationships, and like not being on your phone, like not just staring at a screen all day. You need to get out into nature a little bit. You need to get back to reality. I mean, reality is in nature. It's not in these artificial things that we consume every day and fill our mind with. So that's all I got. Peace.